What do you do at 9? I have an opinion on what they do at 9. I don't know if it's going to be popular.
Give us that opinion. Let's go.
I want to.
What are we waiting for?
I want to preface this. That's true. I want to preface this by saying you got to factor in what teams around the league have done. When you look at the best offenses, when you look at the best passing offenses, especially, every team that's got a really high caliber passing offense has multiple stud number 1 type receivers. If you look at the Bengals, they've got both Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. If you look at the Eagles, it's not just A.J. Brown, it's Devonta Smith too. If you look at even the Miami Dolphins, went out and got Tyreek Hill and added him to Jalen Waddle for a long time. The Chiefs had multiple receivers. They've kind of filled that by having a stud tight end and a bunch of really high caliber running backs in the passing game. But I think the Bears should do what a lot of these teams have done and capitalize on existing chemistry with your quarterback and a wide receiver they played with in college. And at number 9, just go ahead, pull the trigger. Do what Justin Fields is asking you to do on every podcast he can get on and take Jaxon Smith-Njigba. Just do it. Everybody wants offensive line help. Everybody says you got to build inside out. I disagree. I think if you fill this thing out with multiple receivers that could be number 1 receivers, top tier receiving talents, you get the ball out quicker. You have guys get open quicker. That's how you help a young quarterback. Like, the offensive line can be helped by having a lot of wide receivers and the ability to spread defenses out and get them away from the football.
You know, I heard something interesting on a podcast with Robert Mays, the Athletic Football Show, and JT O'Sullivan a couple months ago. This was probably near the end of the regular season. And JT O'Sullivan, former quarterback in the NFL, largely a backup quarterback, but Mays asked him, what is most important for you in terms of building a football team? Is it getting offensive line help or getting a stud number 1 wide receiver? And he said getting that stud wide receiver is more important for him, because when the time is dwindling down, when your internal clock is dwindling down, you feel more comfortable just throwing something up there. Now, he had one of the greatest of all time in his limited time on the field. He was thrown to Calvin Johnson.
Yeah.
I don't think Jaxon Smith-Njigba is going to be Calvin Johnson. I don't think DJ Moore is going to be Calvin Johnson, but it gets back to the point of getting that number 1 wide receiver and how important that is for helping your quarterback develop some confidence and just feel good about your situation moving forward, because this is a Bears team that last year, pretty one-dimensional offensively, but we did see some splash plays down the field. And we did see Justin Fields hit guys like N'Keal Harry, Equanimeous St. Brown, Dante Pettis down the field for big game-breaking plays. He also sprinkled in a little Darnell Mooney as well. But if he can work with guys like DJ Moore, and then you add JSN to that mix as well, and then you've also got Darnell Mooney and Chase Claypool as a part of it, like, you feel pretty good about that as a receiving core.
You get the acronym duo, DJM and JSN. It's
there
perfect.
You go.
I keep thinking about everybody like wanting defensive line help, and I get it because they haven't addressed it as much in free agency, but I just would prefer if they go all out on offense and helping this quarterback and leave the questions for later. Everybody keeps talking about if he doesn't play well enough, then you go and get Caleb Williams and wash your hands of this and you move forward. I would rather prioritize getting him weaponry now. Like, DJ Moore's a nice piece. DJ Moore could be a number 1 receiver in this league. He put together 3,000-yard seasons with nobody quarterbacks. We've talked a lot about that. But I don't think just DJ Moore is close to enough. And I don't think going and putting a first-round investment in Jaxon Smith-Njigba is somehow over-investing in the wide receiver position. I think what we've seen in this renaissance of football is the wide receiver position is the second most important offensive position. If you have the offensive line in place, that's really good. Like, people keep talking about the Lions, how they built their offensive line first. The problem with that is it wasn't one GM building. It's not like it was a long-term plan. They've run 2 different front offices since this offensive line was in place when they took Taylor Decker back in 2016. They've had separate regimes put these together. Like, the Eagles are the only one that you can really look at and go, that's one regime with one focus, and they kept the offensive line that won the Super Bowl together, and then they still have them in place now.
Built the trenches on both sides, too.
But they already had it, and the way that they went about getting over the top was getting that second wide receiver in A.J. Brown. That's where I think the Bears, good job getting DJ Moore, but don't stop. Keep adding weapons.
So the other part to this is also the fact that you look at what the quote-unquote Eagles blueprint is, right? And the Bears have a chance to really expedite what the Eagles did, I think. You think about what the Eagles did, like, we're talking more in a positive light about Justin Fields in his second year than we were Jalen Hurts in his second year. I think we're expedited in that regard, right? And then the receiver group, you have a chance to, because you saw this with the Eagles and we saw this with the Dolphins, right? You draft the receiver one year and then you trade for the number one caliber guy the next year. Jalen Waddle drafted, Devontae Smith drafted. Next year you get Tyreek Hill. Next year you get A.J. Brown.
So the Bears can do this backwards. Right. Yeah, they can do it at the same time.
Both in the same offseason and really get ahead of this thing and expedite your championship contending window here.
And I don't think that that's an issue. And like, people think about what the Bengals did when they put together their offense and they took Jamar Chase over Penei Sewell. And everybody was saying that was a catastrophic mistake. You need to prioritize the offensive line. You had to take Penei Sewell. People are saying the same thing about the Bears right now. The offensive line's terrible. They have to take somebody like Peter Skoronski. They can't afford to go and take a wide receiver. But if they do, like the Bengals did it and went to the Super Bowl. Yes. And I'm not saying the Bears are going to go to the Super Bowl next year. I don't think that. But I do think if you address the wide receiver position and you kind of just go all in on it, now, maybe Jaxon Smith-Njigba is a bust. I don't think that's going to happen. But if you get the pick right, whether it's Jaxon Smith-Njigba, whether it's Quentin Johnston, I don't want to take Jordan Addison that high. It sounds like he's going to fall a little further. But if it's one of those two, I'm okay with that.
In fact, you could trade back and maybe get a Jordan Addison if you like the value there.
But I think, like, if you offer me everything that they could do, whether it's offensive line, defensive line, God forbid it's running back. Like, I keep hearing about Bijan Robinson.
I think that's more smoke than anything else. If the Bears were truly that gung-ho on adding a running back, a major running back name this offseason, I think Miles Sanders would be a Bear, or you would have brought back David Montgomery.
God, can you imagine?
And neither of those happened. So I think we found Ryan Poles' stance on the running back position. Shot from the bargain bin. He did it with Deontay Foreman. He's keeping Khalil Herbert around. You brought in Travis Homer. Maybe he turns into more of a pass blocking back for you as well. So I think we have Ryan Poles' stance on the running back position, and it's in line with what both you and I believe in, that you don't invest heavily in the position.
If you're taking a running back north of the 4th, 5th round, like, good for you. You can do that and it can work. The Browns took Nick Chubb in the 2nd round, but I just wouldn't get into that game. I think we've seen the payoff that you can get in the late rounds taking running backs. I wouldn't get into the game of spending high picks, certainly not a 1st round pick, certainly not on Bijan Robinson. That's beside the point. If you're offering me everything that we can do with this 1st round pick, what I think the Bears have to do is continue to add at wide receiver. Period.
312-332-3776. If you've got a thought on what you think the Chicago Bears should do, currently sitting at number 9 right now in the NFL draft coming up later on in April.